How, watch they morning animals. Chief Sungila Z, the musical gangsters here. And I'm gonna read some Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, y'all. Yeah. Chapter 11. Hermione's Helping Hand. As Hermione had predicted, the 6 years free periods were not the hours of blissful relaxation Ron had anticipated, but times in which to attempt to keep up with the vast amount of homework were being set. Not only were they studying as though they had exams every day, but the lessons themselves had become more demanding than ever before. Harry barely understood half of what McGonagall said to them these days. Even Hermione had to ask her to repeat instructions once or twice. Incredibly, and to Hermione's increasing resentment, Harry's best subject had suddenly become potions, thanks to the Half-Blood Prince. Non-verbal spells were non-expected, not only in defense against the dark arts, but in charms and transfiguration, too. Harry frequently looked over at his classmates in the common room, or at mealtime to see them purple in the face and strained as though they had overdosed on you-know-poo. But he knew that they were really struggling to make spells work without saying incantations aloud. It was a relief to get outside into the greenhouses. They were dealing with more dangerous plants than ever in herbology. At least they were still allowed to swear aloud if the venomous tentacula seized them unexpectedly from behind. One result of the enormous workload and the frantic hours of practicing non-verbal spells was that Harry and Ron and Hermione had so far been unable to find time to go and visit Hagrid. He had stopped coming to meals at the staff table, an ominous sign, and on the few occasions when they had passed him in the corridors or out in the grounds, he had mysteriously failed to notice them or hear their greetings. "You've got to go and explain," said Hermione, looking up at Hagrid's huge chair at the staff table the following Saturday after breakfast. "We called Quidditch tryouts this morning," said Ron, "and we're supposed to be practicing that aguamenti charm from Fitlick. Anyway, explain what? How are we going to tell them we hate the stupid subject?" "We didn't hate it," said Hermione. "Speak for yourself. I hadn't forgotten the Scroots," said Ron darkly. "And I'm telling you now, we've got a narrow escape. We didn't hear him going on about his gormless brother. We'd have been teaching Grob how to tie his shoelaces if we'd stayed." "I hate not talking to Hagrid," said Hermione, looking upset. "He'll go down after Quidditch," Harry assured her. He too was missing Hagrid, although like Ron, he thought that they were better off without Grop in their lives. But trials might take all morning. The number of people who have applied. He felt slightly nervous at confronting the first hurdle of his captaincy. "I don't know why the team's this popular all of a sudden." "Oh, come on, Harry," said Hermione, suddenly impatient. "It's not Quidditch that's popular, it's you. You've never been more interesting, and frankly, you've never been more fanciful." Ron gagged on a large piece of kipper. Hermione spared him one look of disdain before turning back to Harry. "Everyone knows you've been telling the truth now, don't they? The whole Wizarding world has had to admit that you were right about Voldemort being back, and that you really have fought them twice in the last 2 years and escaped both times. And now they're calling you the chosen one. Well, come on, can't you see why people are fascinated by you? Harry was finding the great hall very hot all of a sudden, even though the ceiling was still looked cold and rainy. And you've been through all that persecution from the ministry when they were trying to make out you were unstable and a liar. You can still see the marks on the back of your hand where that evil woman made you write you with your own blood. But you stuck to your story anyway. You can see where those brains got hold of me in the ministry. Look, Armstead showing back his sleeves. And it doesn't hurt that you've grown about a foot over the summer either. Hermione finished, ignoring Ron. I'm told, said Ron inconsequentially. Post owls arrived, swooping down through the rain-flecked windows, scattering everyone with droplets of water. Most people were receiving more than post than usual, and his parents were keen to hear from their children and to reassure them in turn that all was well at home. Harry's received no mail since the start of the term. His only regular correspondent was now dead, and although he had hoped that Lupin might write occasionally, he had so far been disappointed. He was very surprised, therefore, to see the snowy white Hedwig circling amongst all the brown and gray owls. She landed in front of him, carrying a large square package. A moment later, an identical package landed in front of Ron, crushing beneath it his minuscule and exhausted owl, Pigwidgeon. Ha! Said Harry, unwrapping the parcel to reveal a new copy of Advanced Potion Making, fresh from Flourishing Plots. Oh, good, said Hermione, delighted. Now you can give that gratified coffee back. Are you mad? Said Harry. I'm keeping it. Look, I've thought it out. He pulled the old copy of Advanced Potion Making out of his bag and retaped the cover of his wand, muttering, Defendo! The cover fell off. He did the same thing with the brand new book. Hermione looked scandalized. He then swapped the covers, taped each, and said, Pero. There sat the Princess Coffee, disguised as a new book. And there sat the fresh copy of Fortune Plots, looking thoroughly second-handed. I'll give Slughorn back the new one. He can't complain. It cost 9 galleons. Hermione pressed her lips together, looking angry and disapproving, but was distracted by a third owl landing in front of her, carrying that day's copy of the Daily Prophet. She unfolded it hastily and scanned the front page. You know we dead? Anyone we know dead? Asked Ron in a determinedly casual voice. He posed the same question every time Hermione opened her paper. No, but there have been more Demento attacks, said Hermione. And an arrest. Excellent. Who? Said Harry, thinking of Bellatrix Lestrange. Stan Shunpike, said Hermione. What? Said Harry, startled. Stanley Shunpike, conductor on the popular wizarding conveyance, the Night Bus, has been arrested on suspicion of Death Eater activity. Mr. Shunpike, 21, has taken into custody late last night after a raid on his Clapham home. Stan Shunpike, a Death Eater? Said Harry, remembering the spotty youth that he had first met 3 years before. No way! He might have been put under an Imperious curse, said Ron reasonably. You never can tell. Doesn't look like it, said Hermione, who was still reading. Says here he was arrested after he was overheard talking about the Death Eater's secret plans in a pub. She looked up with a troubled expression on her face. If he was under the Imperious curse, he'd already stand around gossiping about their plans, would he? Sounds like he was trying to make out that he knew more than he did, said Ron. Isn't he the one who claimed he was going to become Minister of Magic when he was trying to chat up those Vila? Yeah, that's him, said Harry. I don't know what they're playing at, taking it stand seriously. Probably want to look as though they're doing something, said Hermione, frowning. People are terrified. You know the Patil twins' parents want them to go home, and Eloise Midgen has already been withdrawn. Her father picked her up last night. What? Said Ron, goggling at Hermione. But Hogwarts is safer than their home's bound to be. We got ours and all those extra protective spells, and we got Dumbledore. I don't think we got him at all the time, said Hermione very quietly, glancing toward the staff table over the top of the prophet. Haven't you noticed? The seat's been empty as often as Hagrid's this past week. Harry and Ron looked up at the staff table. The headmaster's chair was indeed empty. Now Harry came to think of it, he had not seen Dumbledore since their private lesson a week ago. I think he's left the school to do something with the order, said Hermione in a low voice. I mean, it's all looking serious, isn't it? Harry and Ron did not answer, but Harry knew that they were all thinking the same thing. There had been a horrible incident the day before when Hannah Abbott had been taken out of her body to be told her mother had been found dead. They had not seen Hannah since. When they left the Gryffindor table, 5 minutes later to head down to the Quidditch pitch, they passed Lavender Brown and Parvati Patil, remembering what Hermione had said about Patil twins' parents wanting them to leave Hogwarts. Harry was surprised to see that the two best friends were whispering together, looking distressed. But this surprised him was when Hermione drew level with him. Parvati suddenly nudged Lavender, who looked around and gave Ron a wide smile. Ron blinked at her, then returned the smile uncertainly. His walk instantly became something more like a strut. Harry resisted the temptation to laugh, remembering that Ron had refrained from doing so after Malfoy had broken Harry's nose. Hermione, however, looked cold and distant all the way down to the stadium, to the cool, misty drizzle, and departed to find a place in the stands without wishing Ron good luck. As Harry had expected, the trials took up most of the morning. Half of Gryffindor House seemed to have turned up, from first years who were nervously clutching a selection of the dreadful cold old school brooms. The 7th years who towered over the rest, looking coldly intimidating. Latter included a large, wiry-haired boy Harry recognized immediately from the Hogwarts Express. He met on the train in old Sluggy's compartment, he said confidently, stepping out of the crowd to shake Harry's hand. Cormac and McLaggen, keeper. You didn't try out last year, did you? Asked Harry, taking note of the breadth of McLaggen and thinking that he would probably block all the coal hoops without even moving. I was in the hospital wing when they had the trials, said McLaggen with something of a swagger. And a pound of doxy eggs for a bet. Doxy eggs for a bet. Right, said Harry. Well, if you wait over there. He pointed to the edge of the pitch, close to where Hermione was sitting. He thought he saw a flicker of annoyance pass over McLaggen's face and wondered whether McLaggen expected preferential treatment because they were both old Sluggy's favorites. Harry decided to start with a basic test, asking if all applicants were between to divide into groups of 10 and fly once around the pitch. This was a good decision. First 10 were made up of first years. They could not have been plainer that they had hardly ever flown before. Only one boy managed to remain airborne for more than 2 seconds. He was so surprised he promptly crashed into one of the goalposts. Second group was comprised of 10 of the silliest girls Harry had ever encountered, who, when he blew his whistle, merely fell about giggling and clutching one another. Romilda Vane was amongst them. When he told them to leave the pitch, they did so cheerfully and went to sit in the stands to heckle everyone else. Third group had a pile-up halfway around the pitch. Most of the fourth group had come without broomsticks. The fifth group were Hufflepuffs. If there's anyone here else who is not from Gryffindor, roared Harry, who was starting to get seriously annoyed. Leave now, please! There was a pause and a couple of little Ravenclaws were sprinting off the pitch, snorting with laughter. After 2 hours, many complaints, several tantrums, one involving Crash Comet 260 and several broken teeth. Ray found himself 3 chases. Katie Bell returned to the team after an excellent trial. A new find called Demelza Robbins, who was particularly good at dodging bludgers, and Ginny Weasley, who had outflown all the competition and scored 17 goals to boot. Pleased though he was with his choices, he had also shot himself hoarse at the meeting complainers and was now enduring a similar battle with the rejected beaters. That's my final decision. If you don't get out of the way for the keepers, I'll hex you, he bellowed. Neither of his chosen beaters had the old brilliance of Fred and George. He was still reasonably pleased with them. Jimmy Peaks, a short but broad-chested third-year boy who had managed to raise a lump the size of an egg on the back of Harry's head with a ferociously hit buzzers, and Richie Coote, who looked weedy but aimed well. They now joined the spectators in the stands to watch the selection of their last team members. Harry had deliberately left the trial of the keepers until last, hoping for an emptier stadium and less pressure on all concerned. Unfortunately, however, all the rejected players and the number of people who had come down to watch after a lengthy breakfast had joined the crowd by now, so that it was larger than ever. As each keeper flew up to the goal hoops, the crowd roared and jeered in equal measure. Harry glanced over at Ron, who had always had a problem with nerves. Harry had hoped that winning their final match last term might have cured it, but apparently not. Ron was a delicate shade of green. None of the first 5 applicants saved more than 2 goals apiece. To Harry's great disappointment, Cormac McLagan saved 4 penalties out of 5. On the last one, however, he shot off in completely the wrong direction. The crowd laughed and booed, and McLagan returned to the ground, grinding his teeth. Ron looked ready to pass out as he mounted his clean sweep 11. Good luck, cried a voice from the stands. Harry looked around, expecting to see Hermione, but it was Lavender Brown, who he would have liked to have hidden his face in his hands, as she did a few moments later, but thought that as the captain, he ought to show slightly more grit. So he turned to watch Ron do his trial. Yet, he needed not have worried. Ron saved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 penalties in a row. Delighted and resisting joining in the cheers of the crowd with difficulty, Harry turned to McLagan to tell him that, most unfortunately, Ron had beaten him. When he found McLagan's red face inches from his own, he stepped back hastily. His sister didn't even try, said McLagan menacingly. There was a vein pulsing in his temple like one Harry had often admired in Uncle Brendan's. She gave him a great, easy save. Rubbish, said Harry coldly. That was the one he nearly missed. McLagan took another step near Harry, who stood his ground this time. Give me another go. No, said Harry. You've had your go. You stayed 4, Ron stayed 5. Ron's keeper. He won it fair and square. Get out of my way. That from one that McLagan might punch him, but he contented himself with an ugly grimace and stormed away. Ron was like clouds to thin air. Harry turned around to find his new team beaming at him. Well done, he croaked. You feel very well. You did brilliantly, Ron. This time it was Hermione running toward him from the stands. Harry saw Lavender walking off the pitch, arm in arm with Parvati, a rather grumpy expression on her face. Ron looked extremely pleased with himself, and even taller than usual as he grinned at the team and at Hermione. After fixing the times of their first full practice for the following Thursday, Harry, Ron, and Hermione bade goodbye to the rest of the team and headed off towards Hagrid's. The watery sun was trying to break through the clouds now, and it was stopped drizzling at last. Harry felt extremely hungry. He hoped there would be something to eat at Hagrid's. I thought I was going to miss the 4th penalty, Ron was saying happily. Tricky shot from Denilza. Did you see it had a bit of spin on it? Yes, you were magnificent, said Hermione, looking amused. I was better than that McLagan anyway, said Ron in a highly satisfied voice. Did you see him lumbering off in the wrong direction on his 5th? Looked like he'd been confounded. Harry's surprised. Hermione turned a very deep shade of pink at those words. Ron noticed nothing. He was too busy describing each of his other penalties in loving detail. The great grey hippogriff Buckbeak was tethered in front of the Hagrid's cabin. He clicked his razor-sharp beak as they approached and turned his huge head toward them. Oh dear, said Ron nervously. Said Hermione nervously. He's still a bit scary, isn't it? Come off it, you've ridden him, haven't you? Said Ron. Harry stepped forward and bowed low to the hippogriff without breaking eye contact or blinking. After a few seconds, Buckbeak sank into a bow too. How are you? Harry asked him in a low voice, moving forward to stroke his feathery head. Listen, you? You're okay here with Hagrid, aren't you? Oi! Said a loud voice. Hagrid came striding around the corner of his cabin, wearing a large flowery apron and carrying a sack of potatoes. His enormous boarhound, Fang, was at his heels. Fang gave him a booming bark and bounded for... Get away from him! He'll have your fingers. Oh yeah, it's Yellow. Oh, it's Yellow. Fang was jumping up at Hermione and Ron. Then he licked their ears. Hagrid stood and looked at them all for a split second, then turned and strode into his cabin, slamming the door behind him. Oh dear, said Hermione, looking stricken. Don't worry about it, said Harry grimly. He walked over to the door and knocked loudly. Hagrid, open up, we want to talk to you. There was no sound from within. If you don't open up, we'll blast it open. Harry said, pulling out his wand. Harry, said Hermione, sounding shocked. You can't possibly. I can, said Harry. Stand back. But before he could say anything else, the door flew open again as Harry had known it would. There stood Hagrid, glowering over him, looking, despite the flowery apron, positively alarming. I'm a teacher, he roared at Harry. A teacher, Potter! How dare you to break down my door? I'm sorry, sir, said Harry, emphasizing the last word as he stowed his wand inside his robes. Hagrid looked stunned. Since when have you called me sir? When have you called me Potter? Oh, very clever. growled Hagrid. They admitted that's me outspotted it. Alright, come on in then, you ungrateful little... Mumbling darkly, he stood back to let them pass. Hermione scurried in after Harry. Harry looked rather frightened. Well, said Harry, Hagrid grumpily, as Harry, Ron, and Hermione sat down around his enormous wooden table, Fang laying his head immediately upon Harry's knee and drooling all over his robes. What's this? Feeling sorry for me? Reckon I'm lonely or something? No, said Harry at once. We wanted to see you. We missed you, said Hermione tremulously. Missed me, have you? Snorted Hagrid. Right. Yeah, right. He stomped around brewing up tea in his enormous copper kettle, muttering all the while. Finally, he slammed down 3 bucket-sized mugs of mahogany brown tea in front of them, and the plate of his rock cakes. Harry was hungry enough even for Hagrid's cooking and took it one at once. Hagrid, said Hermione timidly, and when he joined them at the table, he started peeling his potatoes with a brutality that suggested that each tuber had done him a great personal wrong. He really wanted to carry on with carry magical creatures, you know. Harry gave him another great snort. Harry rather thought some bogeys landed on his potatoes, but and was inwardly thankful that they were not staying for dinner. We did, said Hermione, and none of us could fit into our schedules. Yeah, right, said Hagrid again. There was a funny squelching sound. They all looked around. Hermione let out a tiny shriek. Ron slipped out of the seat and hurried around the table away from the large barrel standing in the corner that they had only just noticed. It was full of what looked like foot-long maggots, slimy, white, and writhing. What are they, Hagrid? Asked Harry, trying to sound interested rather than revolted, but put down his rock cake all the same. Just giant grubs, said Hagrid. And they grow into, said Ron, looking apprehensive. They won't grow into nothing, said Hagrid. I got them to feed to Aragog. And without warning, he burst into tears. Hagrid, cried Hermione, leaping up, hurrying around the table the long way to avoid the barrel of maggots and putting on arm around the shaking joints. What is it? Go, said Hagrid. His back out streaming as he mopped his face with his apron. It's Aragog. I think he's dying. He got ill over the summer and he's not getting better. I don't know what I'll do if we've been together so long. Hermione patted Hagrid's shoulders, looking at the complete loss for anything to say. Harry knew how she felt. He had known Hagrid to present a vicious baby dragon with a teddy bear, and him croon over a giant scorpions with suckers and stingers, attempt to reason with his brutal giant of a half-brother. This is perhaps the most incomprehensible of all his monster fantasies. The giant talking spider, Aragog, who dwelt deep in the forbidden forest and which he and Ron had not escaped 4 years previously. Is there anything we can do? Hermione asking when Ron's frantic grimaces and head shaking. I don't think there is, Hermione. Croaked Chotag, attempting to turn the flood of his tears. See, the rest of the tribe, Aragog Chumley, they're getting a bit funny now. He's ill, a bit restive. Yeah, I think we saw a bit of that side of him, said Ron in an undertone. I don't reckon it'd be safe for anyone but me to go near the colony at the Mo. Edgar finished blowing his nose. Hard on his apron and looking up. But thanks for offering, Hermione. It means a lot. After that, the atmosphere lightened considerably. Although neither Harry nor Ron had shown any inclination to go and feed giant grubs to a murderous gargantuan spider, Hagrid seemed to take it for granted that they would have liked to have done and become his usual self once more. I always knew you'd find it hard to squeeze me into your timetables, he said gruffly, pouring them more tea. Even if you applied for time turners. You couldn't have done, said Hermione. You smashed the entire stock of military time turners when we were there last summer. It was in the Daily Prophet. Well then, said Hagrid. There's no way you could have done it. I'm sorry I've just been worried about our dog. And I did wonder whether if Professor Gubby Pang had been teaching you, at which all three of them stared categorically and untruthfully that Professor Grubbly Pang, who had substituted for Hagrid a few times, was a dreadful teacher. With the result that by the time Hagrid waved them off at the premises at dusk, he looked quite cheerful. I'm starving, said Harry once the door had closed behind them, and they were hurrying through the dark and deserted grounds. He had abandoned the rock cake for the ominous cracking noise from one of his back teeth. I got that detention with Snape tonight. I haven't got much time for dinner. As they came into the castle, they spotted McGonagall entering the Great Hall. It took him 2 attempts to get through the doors. He ricocheted off the frame on the first attempt. Ron Murray guffawed glowingly and strode off into the hall after him. But Harry caught Hermione's arm and held her back. What? Said Hermione defense. You asked me, said Harry quietly. And looks like he was confounded this morning. He was standing right in front of where you were sitting. Hermione blushed. Oh, all right, then I did it, she whispered. You should have heard the way he was talking about Ron and Jimmy. Anyway, he's got a nasty temper. You saw how he reacted when he didn't get in. You wouldn't have wanted someone like that on the team. No, said Harry. No, I suppose that's true. But wasn't that dishonest, Hermione? I mean, you're a prefect, aren't you? Oh, be quiet. She snapped as he smirked. What are you two doing? Demanded Ron, reappearing in the doorway to the Great Hall and looking suspicious. Nothing, said Harry and Hermione together, and they hurried out after Ron. The smell of roast beef made Harry's stomach ache with hunger, but they had barely taken 3 steps toward Gryffindor table when Professor Slughorn appeared in front of them, blocking their path. Harry, just the man I was hoping to see, he boomed genially, twiddling the ends of his rawest mustache and puffing out his enormous belly. I was hoping to catch you before dinner. What do you say to a spot of supper tonight in my rooms instead? We're having a little party, just a few rising stars. I got McLaggen coming, and Zabini, the charming Linda Bobbin. Don't know whether you want to know her. She only owns a large chain of apothecaries. And of course, hope very much that Miss Granger will favor me by coming too. Slughorn made Hermione a little bow as he finished speaking. It was as though Ron was not present. Slughorn did not so much as look at him. I can't come, Professor, said Harry at once. We got a detention with Professor Snape. Oh dear, said Slughorn, his face feeling comically uncomic. Dear. I was counting on you, Harry. Well, now I'll just have to have a word with Severus and explain the situation. Sure, I'll be able to persuade him to postpone your detention. Yes, I'll see you both later. He bustled away out of the hall. He's got no chance of persuading Snape, said Harry the moment Slughorn was out of earshot. This detention's already been postponed once. Snape did it for Dumbledore, but he won't do it for anyone else. Oh, I wish you could come. I don't want to go on my own, said Hermione anxiously. Harry knew what she was thinking about McLaggen. I doubt you'll be alone. Ginny'll probably have to be invited, snapped Ron, who did not seem to have taken kindly to be ignored by Slughorn. After dinner, they had made their way back to Gryffindor Tower. The common room was very crowded, as most people had finished eating by now, but they managed to find a free table and sat down. Ron, who had been in a bad mood ever since the encounter with Slughorn, folded his arms and frowned at the ceiling. Hermione reached out for a copy of the Evening Prophet, which somebody had left abandoned on a chair. Anything new? Said Harry. Not really. Hermione had opened the newspaper and was scanning the inside pages. Look at that in your head, Ron. You all right? She added quickly, for Ron had looked around in alarm. Says he's been to visit the Malfoy's house. Second search of the Death Eaters of Resistance residence does not seem to have yielded any results. Arthur Weasley of the Office for Detection and Confiscation of Counterfeit Defensive Spells and Protective Objects said that his team had been acting upon a confidential tip-off. Yeah, mine, said Harry. Told him that King's Claws about Malfoy and that thing he was trying to get that Gorgon to fix. So it's not at their house. He must have brought it wherever it is to Hogwarts with him. How can he have done, Harry? Said Hermione, putting down the newspaper with a surprised look. We were all searched when we arrived, weren't we? Were you? Said Harry, taking it back. I wasn't. Oh no, of course you weren't. I forgot you were late. But Filch ran all over us with secrecy sensors when we called into the Great Hall. Any dark object would have been found, and over fat crab and a shrunken head confiscated. So you see, Malfoy can't have brought in anything dangerous. Momentarily stymied, Harry watched Ginny Weasley playing with Arnold with the pygmy puff for a while before seeing a way around this objection. Someone sent it to him by owl then, he said. His mother was someone. All the owls have been checked too, said Hermione. Filch told us so when he was jamming those secrecy sensors everywhere he could reach. Really stumped this time. Harry found nothing else to say. There did not seem to be any way Malfoy could have brought a dangerous or dark object into school. He looked hopefully at Ron, who was sitting with his arms folded, staring over at Lavender Brown. Can you think of any way, Malfoy? Oh, drop it, Harry. Listen, it's not my fault. Slughorn invited Hermione and me to a stupid party. Neither of us wanted to go, you know. Because I'm not invited to any parties, said Ron, getting his feet up again. I think I'll go to bed. He stumped off toward the door to the boys' dormitories, leaving Harry and Hermione staring after him. Harry, said the new chaser, Demelza Robbins appearing suddenly at his shoulder. We got a message for you. Harry? From Professor Slughorn? Said Harry, sitting up hopefully. No, from Professor Snape, said Demelza. Harry's heart sank. He says you're to come to his office at 8:30 tonight to do your detention. No matter how many party invitations you receive, He wanted you to know you'll be sorting out rotten followers from good ones to use in potions. And he says there's no need to bring protective gloves. Right, said Harry. Thanks a lot, then, Elsa. And that's it for this chapter.